Hello and welcome to Daily News Analysis. So today is 6th of April 2022. You're watching the Hindu newspapers Delhi edition. Now as part of our initiative, I make it a point to share questions for mains answer writing practice, and you can get your answers evaluated for free. So all you have to do is write your answers on pen and paper, share it with me on my Telegram or WhatsApp, and the details are there in the description box below. Simple. Now today I have two questions, very simple. So first one is on the Indian Antarctic Bill. Now this was an explainer section, so everything is available in the article itself. I'll just give you an overview and that will help. The next is with reference to sports. So there was this opinion section from where I have framed a question, a bit unconventional actually, but what if a question is asked on sports? Prelims UPSC has started focusing on sports as well. Right, so with reference to sports over here, so I have this question. Now we had opinions and editorials on Ukrainian issue, right, the policy on alignment. So like that, those topics were there, but then they are often repeated. So for the time being, I'm restricting to these two topics only. And by the way, when we are looking at the bill, we have a bill that is coming with reference to the banning of funding for weapons of mass destruction. Now today I am not asking, but yes, subsequently I will frame a question on this as well. And one more concept that I'm going to teach, this is new, global bond sales. So this is a concept that I want to focus, so we'll do that also. Now the first topic, let dam committee continue for a year. So this is with reference to, in the Kerala, there is a Mulla Periyar dam. So basically a dam on where Mullayer river and the Periyar river meet. So there is a dam in Kerala which is being controlled by Tamil Nadu. So it is being controlled and governed by Tamil Nadu, and the state of Kerala has concerns with reference to the safety. They have concerns about the functioning of the dam over there. So there is a disagreement between the state of Tamil Nadu and Kerala. So both have gone to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court's, they are listening to this case, and Centre is also a party, and Centre says that let this continue. Whatever this arrangement is there, let it continue. Till the time, within 1 year, we have already enacted a law known as the Dam Safety Act. So we have already enacted a Dam Safety Act that will regulate the issue of dam safety across the country. Now you see in this also you can see there is a disagreement between the states of Tamil Nadu and Kerala. And likewise, this is not the only state. There are many other states, and this is a federal issue. It is not restricted to one state, even though one may say that the subject of water is with the state. But then this is interstate in its nature, and therefore the central government or the parliament has the authority to pass or enact such a law. So this dam safety authority will be formed. Then it will be also implemented also by then. So give it a time of year. Let it be postponed for the time being. That is what the centre has proposed to the Supreme Court. Gotabaya government loses majority in parliament. I think that was well expected. So in Sri Lanka, there is a lot of chaos that is going on. Economic crisis is there, debt crisis is there. And I think this is something that we should consider, like something like this can happen in our polity also, Indian economy also, if we do not manage a fiscal deficit and the current account deficit well. And by the way, fiscal deficit and current account deficit combined, if both are in a very bad state, then we call it as the twin deficit also. Okay, so Sri Lanka faces the issue of high fiscal deficit and current account deficit, and thereby it is on the verge of bankruptcy. I think it is bankrupt. So things are very, very expensive. Inflation is rising like anything, obviously. They are not able to import things. So the situation is very bad. There is an economic crisis, and naturally who will be held responsible? The government. So the Gotabaya government has been held accountable. In fact, its own cabinet ministers Gotabaya's own cabinet ministers have tendered their resignation and they went into the opposition camp. So even their closest ally, like Sri Lanka Freedom Party, has also quit. Simple. So what Gotabaya had suggested, yesterday I didn't do the article. So what Gotabaya, this is a family actually. So number of leaders are there with this surname. So he's the president. And what he's suggesting is that there should be a caretaker government. There should be a caretaker government. And he needs the support of everyone, the people in the ruling party as well as in the opposition. And naturally, it's a crisis, full-blown crisis. Nobody wants to take responsibility on this also. Right. So naturally, this proposal has been cancelled. It has been overlooked by the other members, the people in the opposition camp. Now, the latest I have on the Gotabaya thing, right? This he has refused to step down. So he's refused to step down. It is not there in today's news. It has just come on the mobile phone right now as a notification. So he's refused to step down for the time being. Now Sri Lanka is also considering getting finances or some sort of support from the International Monetary Fund, which is also known as the Bretton Woods twins. Now coming to the next article, Muslims come to aid of terrified Kashmiri Pandits. Okay. So there was a shopkeeper, Bal Krishna Bhatt, Kashmiri Pandit. So he was attacked near his shop. Fortunately, he's alive and he got injured. So it has created a sense of fear. Now this is important, this particular thing. It's basically a trend that is emerging at this point. And I say important because J&K, the terrorism in J&K specifically, is a topic that is important for UPSC mains GS3. Now the trend that is emerging is, especially in the recent times, we are seeing this increased terror activities from this organization, Kashmir Freedom Fighters. And they are targeting the Kashmiri Pandits. They are targeting the non-Muslim people, basically, the Sikhs also. So number of incidents had taken place last year, sometime October, November, December, around that time, number of incidents had taken place. So somewhere we can see that the idea of militancy right now, they are not targeting. There was a time when they started, that Kashmir File movies come. So that they are showing that, okay, Kashmiri Pandits were targeted, which was right. Sikhs were also targeted. So that was an attempt to change the demography of the place, that Kashmiri Pandits should go out. So that trend was there. Then a trend emerged where people were only targeting the state establishment. The paramilitary forces, the government officers, they were targeting that. Now again the trend is emerging. Somewhere there is an attempt to create a sense of communal divide in Kashmir. And that is what they are targeting, and this is very, very dangerous. And this needs to be stopped right away. Anyhow, it has to be checked. So for the time being, what we have is that Jammu and Kashmir police have provided security cover to the Pandit families after the Monday's attack. Naturally, we need to intensify the security of those who are highly vulnerable. So that security has to be provided. And at the same time, something needs to be done so that this radicalization will take place as a result. Naturally, the Kashmiri Pandits, think about it, there is Hindu and Muslims, there will be tensions because of this, and that is what is the idea. Now, another concept associated with the state of Jammu and Kashmir, when we look at improving the relations or stabilizing the Jammu and Kashmir, three terms are often used: Insaniyat, Jamhuriyat and Kashmiriyat. So Insaniyat means that we have to solve the problem of Jammu and Kashmir from the spectrum of humanity. Jamhuriyat means democratic processes. In fact, the crisis started when there was an allegation of rigged elections. And ever since, there has been a lot of protest. Jamhuriyat can also mean restoration of the political process, and in this case, the union territory has been made. Elections are not taking place to the assembly. So that is the problem. Now this trend, this militancy thing is also starting when we see that the elections are going to come up. So an attempt is made at polarizing the society. Okay, so all this has to be stopped. Insaniyat, Jamhuriyat has to be encouraged, and Kashmiriyat. What is Kashmiriyat? Kashmiriyat is basically representative of the syncretic culture of the Kashmiris living together. It is not about Hindu, Muslim. They have been living together for years, different communities. Yes, there were certain blots in the history of Kashmir where the communal divide took place, but by and large, they have been living as a secular society and with the only identity of being a Kashmiri, that we are all one. And one more thing that I think you should keep in mind with reference to Kashmir is a short note on Lal Ded, a mystic saint which focused on Hindu-Muslim unity, so Bhakti movement. Lal Ded. A question can be asked on Zainul Abidin in mains, Zainul Abidin as the Akbar of Kashmir, and Kalhan, the person, the historian who wrote the Raj Tarangani. So these are certain things in which GS1 questions can also be asked. Kalhan's Raj Tarangani, and what do we know about the history of Kashmir? And Kashmir is there in the news, and therefore it's very important. Now coming to the Indian Antarctic Bill and its various provisions. Now there is something that needs to be looked into. So let me just start. Antarctic is a place, now just consider this as Antarctic, right? This is Antarctica, and Antarctica is a place which is being regulated by something known as Antarctic Treaty. So you need to know the context actually. So Antarctic Treaty that was signed in 1983. So this treaty says that the territory of Antarctica, which is 60 degrees south of south latitude, 60 degrees south latitude, imagine the globe. It is a territory that cannot be claimed by anyone. No country can say that this territory, you put your flag and say this is India, this is America. Nobody can do that. It's a global common. It's a global common. This will be used, this territory will be used only for peaceful purposes only and for scientific cooperation in Antarctica. There should not be any territorial issues, or this area is being claimed by a particular country, nothing of that sort. And it shall not be used as a zone for nuclear test. No nuclear testing or no disposal of nuclear waste, radioactive waste on the site of Antarctica. So think about it. What I'm saying is that this territory of Antarctica belongs to no country whatsoever. And yet India has passed a law on Antarctic, Indian Antarctic Bill. Got it? So Indian Antarctic Bill. So how come? So as India is a signatory of Antarctic Treaty, India signed this treaty. The treaty says that the member countries, the countries who have signed, they should bring out some set of laws that regulate the affairs of their members. Like for example, when Indians are going to Antarctica or exploration work is going on, whatever, Indians or any other country should make laws as to how to regulate their conduct in their respective territory, in the Antarctica basically. Right, so that is the purpose of the Antarctic Bill. So the idea is that the Indians who are coming over here, their activities should be regulated. So that is why the law is being created. And likewise, the Americans, so Americans will make a law for that. And when I say Americans, I mean USA, right? So like that. So the Antarctic Treaty obliged its members to specify a set of laws governing portions of the continent where it had its research basis. And in the coming times, we are going to have more and more people coming over here. There could be tourism also coming up. There could be increased activity of the private sector in the Antarctic region. So thereby there was a need to prioritize a law so as to regulate the affairs of Indians coming to Antarctica. Done. So this is it. You can rest, you can read this. This is the place where it is telling us about the need for a law and the objectives. Furthermore, it says that there should be an Antarctic fund for the protecting the Antarctic environment, and the jurisdiction of the Indian courts. Naturally, if somebody has done something wrong in Antarctica and it is challenged by the, it has been challenged by someone, then it should be appealable also, or they can be held accountable. For example, if we do something wrong, ultimately we'll have to go to the courts. So jurisdiction of Indian courts will apply to Antarctic as well, right? So it will apply to Antarctic also, and it lays out penal provisions for crimes on the continent by Indian citizens, only by Indian citizens. Indian citizens, foreign citizens who are part of Indian expeditions. This will be applicable. Okay. Now this law was introduced by the Union Science Minister. This is important. So Ministry of Science, it signifies that it is the Ministry of Science which is participating or being more assertive in the activities of the Antarctica. Okay, so this is there. And one more thing was there, that for private tours, etc., we no longer need a permit. So it prohibited the need for a permit. I think I got it wrong. Private tours and expeditions to Antarctica would be prohibited without a permit. Right, so these are certain things. Now, one thing that is still left is India joined the treaty system in 1983. So there is one treaty, Antarctic Treaty, which tells us about all of this. Furthermore, there are other treaties also, such as the Convention on the Conservation of Antarctic Marine Living Resources. Fine, marine living resources, they should be conserved. What do we find? Penguins, okay, and many other things actually. And the Protocol on the Environmental Protection of the Antarctic Treaty. Now recently I have been doing some test analysis and some questions were being asked for prelims on Antarctic. So one of the questions was as to which is the first name of the first station, research station of Indians in Antarctic. So this was a question that is being asked. So we have the Dakshin Gangotri, then we have the Maitri. So it is Bharti and Maitri. So they have come much later. Dakshin Gangotri is the first station of ours in Antarctic, right? So this is it. So you try at this question, discuss the salient features, just list down the features, the purpose of this bill, and the significance. It's the significance of, obviously when you're telling the objectives, that has the significance in a way, what is going to be the likely impact. So significance of this in Antarctic bill. And why are we going to Antarctic, by the way? A number of reasons could be there. We have this we have to study the ozone layer depletion. So the ozone hole is observed over here. That is one thing. It's a very, very cold environment. So space-like environment could be visible over here. Then one more thing, we are concerned about the global warming at this point of time, the melting of the Arctics and the Antarctica. So with the melting, it will affect the pressure systems of the world. So it is going to affect the pressure systems. So it may have an impact on the monsoonal climate cycle also. Now coming to the next article, that is making sports accessible for all. Just give me a minute. Actually, I'm on the move and I'm staying in a guest room where I'm taking classes actually. So there's a bit of a noise now. Making sports accessible for all. So this was the article, and which is focusing upon challenging the stigma and stereotypes that surround women and persons with disabilities. But moreover, it tells us about, in the initial part, it tells us about the role that sports plays and how it makes the world a better place. So the question is, examine the positive role played by sports in making the world a better place. How? And by the way, sports can also be associated with the ethics. How does sports promote ethics, or ethics in sports? So that is also there. So how does it play a positive role? Team building, the spirit of cooperation, people from different groups, but they are united by sports. India-Pakistan tensions, but we say, okay, we should have match. So some way the diplomacy will start. So it has a unifying effect. It is recreational in nature. So recreational, we are entertained, it leads to physical activity. So physically we are fit. It leads to our mental well-being also. So number of ways the sports plays a positive role. And furthermore, I think I'm saying too much of this furthermore. So UN's 2030 agenda for sustainable development, this has also signified upon this role of the sports. So I'll give you this homework. What is the sustainable developmental goals? Read about this. What is the time period of SDG, etc. In this reference, suggest measures to promote sports and make it inclusive in its truest sense. So what are the measures that the government can take, or the policymakers can take to promote sports? So inclusive sports culture has to be generated by effective policies, progressive curricula, sports-based curricula, it should be encouraged. Physical education should be provided in the schools, and this equipment should be well equipped, right? So all of this should be done to promote sports. Else, I think I'll encourage you to have your own research. And furthermore, once more, so we have this scheme known as Fit India campaign and Khelo India that has been encouraged to create the sports, to create a sports movement of fit, being fit by means of sports. So that is there. Now, what are the barriers? If we have to say what is making it inclusive, making the sports inclusive, we have to define what are the issues with the sports being non-inclusive. Women, you have to play cricket. With playing cricket, you will find the boys playing cricket, the girls typically playing stapu, and if the girl goes, there is a bit of a barrier as to the acceptance of having a girl playing a particular sport, right? So this is the problem. So somewhere there is a sense of exclusion, somewhere there is a social and a cultural barrier. Women are supposed to play with the Barbie dolls and not play with the bat and ball. And persons with disabilities, they have obviously with the limitations over here, there is a problem. So somewhere we need to address this situation also, which sadly your article does not do. We need to find probable solutions for this. And by the way, for the disabilities, we have a scheme known as Sugamya Bharat Yojana, or also known as Accessible India. So this needs to be done. Now, something for prelims, we have UNESCO, which has launched its Fit for Life flagship initiative. So Fit for Life flagship initiative is started by which agency? The Government of India, the Prime Minister, UNESCO, UNICEF, etc. Right, so 4 options. Write a brief note on UNESCO's Fit for Life flagship initiative in India. I don't want to go very deep, just write it in 75 words. It will be associated with a tail question in a real exam scenario. Bill in Lok Sabha to ban weapons of mass destruction funding. So what are weapons of mass destruction? Anything that can cause destruction. Maybe most likely when we refer to this term, we are referring to nuclear weapons. But it is not necessary that we are just restricting to nuclear weapons. So weapons of mass destruction. Now I'll add a perspective to this. So basically it says, this article in itself, it says that we already have a law that was initiated in 2005 that says weapon of mass destructions and their delivery systems, prohibition of unlawful activities only. So it provided the restriction on manufacturing, it banned it. Now it says, this law says that even funding, anybody who is engaged in funding of the weapons of mass destruction apart from the government, so that person will be, their assets will be frozen and action will be taken against this. This is banned. Now, why is it significant? It is significant in the sense that there is a concern that weapons of mass destruction may fall into private hands. It may happen that state or non-state actors, the government or non-state actors like militant organizations, may get their hands on the weapons of mass destruction. It could be supplied by Pakistan, it could be by China. There is a legitimate concern that Iran, which is sponsoring, militant groups like Houthis in Yemen, or in Israel there is Hezbollah, Hamas. So they can provide, if they get nuclear technology and if they're able to enrich their nuclear resources and form nuclear weapons, they can also hand them low-grade nuclear weapons to militants. So there is a concern. So to nip the problem in the bud, the government is coming up with this law given the circumstances and saying that, see, even funding will not be, it's not just manufacturing, this is a technical flaw. So the funding aspect is also covered. So this, the minister said, Mr. Jaishankar, that the United Nations Security Councils, this will be in line with the UN Security Council's targeted financial sanctions with reference to WMD, and the Financial Action Task Force, which has provisions that, the money should not be used or funding should not be available for proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and their delivery system. Okay, so this is it. Now I've highlighted it is specific to such person, no reference to a country actually. BrahMos sale to Philippines, a bilateral deal. First of all, what is BrahMos? BrahMos is a supersonic missile. Supersonic means around 2 to 3 Mach. And these days we are also listening about the hypersonic missile. So hypersonic is a missile whose speed is upwards of 5 Mach. And Mach is the unit of speed of sound. So BrahMos missile, which has been formed in collaboration with India and Russia, Brahmaputra and Muscovite, the name of the two rivers. So this missile we are selling to Philippines, and it is a bilateral deal. We are very particular, it's a bilateral deal. That means it is only a deal between India and Philippines, two countries. No, Russia is not involved, even though it played a significant role in developing the missiles. Normally we will take their concurrence. Who knows, we still took it at this point of time. So we are supplying this missile to Philippines. And where is Philippines located? Inverted Sea, China, and the Southeast Asian countries, the island archipelago countries, and on top somewhere here it is Philippines with its capital Manila. Whereby, one more thing about Manila is that Asian Development Bank, sponsored by Japan, but it is placed in Manila. So important for pre. Okay, so in Manila, and we all know that Philippines has tensions with its neighboring countries, in particular China. So China will not be happy with us providing Philippines very high-tech missile technology, that is BrahMos. Which it says, to a question if China may have an issue with the sale, which it says that it is only a weapon that is provided for self-defense. Self-defense against whom? China. China is the one that is the aggressor country. China is the one with which they have the dispute about the South China Sea issue. Is China. And India is providing a technology over here. So India is playing, somewhere we see that India is being more vocal about the regional affairs, not just of India, of this region, South Asia or the BIMSTEC, but also in the South China Sea. Likewise, we are looking at export of weapons to Vietnam, and Vietnam has a very ugly history with China. So they have an issue, China keeps bullying them, Vietnam, so we are providing them the weapons also. And we have this advanced, we have been making this helicopters, now we have made the Tejas fighter plane also, light combat aircraft. So light, low cost also, that means, so light combat aircraft to this, plus we have made it and not by US or any other country. So the cost of making this aircraft is also comparatively less. So this also we are providing, the Philippines have expressed their interest for Tejas, and this could apply to other countries also, like Vietnam, Cambodia. So this is the South China Sea region, Indo-Pacific region. We are also supplying to Ecuador, certain other countries. So this is it. I have explained the geopolitics as well as the deal over here. So envoy says that Russia was though part of this development. Its sale is a transaction between two countries only. IPCC report endorses India's position on climate finance. And what is India's position on climate finance? And what is IPCC? IPCC, I think I've said this multiple times. Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. It's basically a research body of the United Nations Environment Program, UNEP, which is headquartered in Kenya. This is unique. So, which is headquartered in this thing, and whose purpose is to ensure or to provide the policy guidance so as to we are able to restrict the issue of climate change. It is also part of United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Framework Convention on Climate Change. So it provides that. And one thing that you need to remember about IPCC is that it doesn't have its own research. I mean, it doesn't collect facts from laboratories, etc. It relies on research done by the other people. And what does the report endorse? What is India's climate finance situation? India says very simple. Half the global, we account for half the global population, the vast majority of the developing country, was responsible for only 14% of global emissions. The rest is coming from developed countries. And they became developed because of the Industrial Revolution, which initially started with United Kingdoms, Britain, and then we have it in USA also and other parts of the Europe also. So they developed, they polluted the environment. So today we have a problem where the climate change has touched 1.1 degrees Celsius of the pre-industrial level. It is they are doing, not us, and our share is relatively small, 14% of global emissions, vast majority of developing world. So rest is coming from the developed countries. So it says, let's see, the issue of climate change is a global collective action. We need the global collective action. And this has to be done by international cooperation, multilateralism. Naturally, all countries have to step up, but the responsibility of the developed countries is much more. There is a common but differentiated responsibilities. Common responsibilities of all countries, but differentiate because developed countries have a greater role in causing the pollution or the issue of climate change. So this is what they are saying, and therefore, if India, if they want the developing countries to pollute less, then provide the finance that is required for us to transition into clean energy. So which they are not able to do, and the instrument for financing or funding is GCF. I'm forgetting Green Climate Fund or Global Climate Fund. I'm forgetting the exact G over here, but this is what that has been created. And one more thing that we have is Global Environment Facility, GEF. And GEF funds which of the following organizations? That was also asked in the prelims. Now quickly, I have one I have this international and the business section. So European Union allies, naturally they are in favor of the sanctions on Russia. They have decided to intensify their protest over the Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and they have decided to expel over 200 envoys. India, which is otherwise a bit conservative on Russia's criticism, India has condemned the Bucha killings that took place in Ukraine by obviously Russia. Then pressure is being invoked upon India. India is being put under pressure that India should not raise Russian purchases, and the specific one is oil. So every country should abide by the sanctions imposed by United States. And by the way, Indian External Affairs Minister only recently said that even though you are telling us, but it's the European Union, the EU countries which have actually stepped up their engagement with Russia, even though they talk about the sanctions. Germany shuts down Russian darknet marketplace Hydra. Okay, first of all, this should have been dark web and not darknet. This headline is wrong. This concept is wrong. So we have, what is darknet? So see, normal internet is surface net, like we see on YouTube, which is available to everyone, accessible to anyone, government websites, etc., all normal web pages. Then when you log on to Facebook, for example, so Facebook user page, when you put your user ID, etc., that is part of the surface net over here. That is available, accessible to anyone. Then comes the darknet. What is darknet? Darknet is when you have your user ID password and the access is available to your friends only. These days, we've locked up a profile so others cannot see it. So it is restricted to only those people whom which we have given access. So that is darknet. Only to those. And the entire spectrum of things, it is dark web. So we tend to interchangeably use this expression, dark web. Dark web means that darknet is when somebody has user ID password and the thing is restricted to a particular person. It could be a university only, university's own resources, so available to the university students only. Dark web is everything that is unknown. What all is happening is unknown and nobody can normally access it. Here itself, when we are referring to the Facebook thing, we have an interface, we have a page where we have to go, we have to put in user ID password, even that is not there. So there are specific solutions, there are specific browsers by which only, and this availability is only to specific people only. So this darknet marketplace Hydra has been banned, right? It has been banned over here. And normally this is used by organized crime syndicates, or you want certain things smuggled. So illegal activities take place over here because it is dark. Scrutiny is not there. Legitimate activities also take place. It's not like, it's just a medium. So that legitimate activities, for example, there may be a whistleblower which is communicating with the journalist for the rightful thing. So that can also take place. March retail auto sales fall 2.9%. This is basically an association of the automobile dealers, Federation of Automobile Dealers Association. Don't have to memorize. So this is important. I'm not really concerned about what is happening in the automobile sector, but it is tell us that things are not good with India's manufacturing domain, which automobile takes a sizable chunk. And the IIP is also significant amount is coming from the manufacturing sector. So it says, first of all, we don't have supply of critical components like semiconductors. Then overall, the economy is not in a good shape. There is a rural stress because of the pandemic, the lockdowns, etc. Now, I don't know what happens with the heat waves and the drought. It will come in the news subsequently. Then the cost of ownership of the vehicles have also gone up. Inflation has increased. The raw material, steel, etc. is getting more expensive. Then cost of buying fuel, that is also expensive. So the net cost of ownership of vehicle is getting very, very expensive. Now the same association has said, you must have heard that the EV scooters, EV cars have got burnt, right? A fire took place. So it says that the government should create, Ministry of Road and Transport, it should create a set of guidelines or some sort of a regulations for the manufacturing of the EV batteries. And one thing about the lithium ion is that when it is exposed to the normal air, then it tends to burn. So some sort of safety frameworks, some sort of standards or regulation should be brought for this purpose. Global bond sales to surpass 10 trillion in 2022, says Standards and Poor's. Now what does this mean? Global bond sales. I had to explain this. Other articles you can still do by yourself. This is very simple. Government wants money. Anybody who wants money, in this case it's government. Government wants money. Money from whom? Maybe high net worth individuals, maybe from people, whatever. Banks, people who have money basically, or institutions that have money. So government says, okay, fine, I'll issue you a bond. I will issue you a bond. What is a bond? Bond will have a paper which says that, see, I have to pay this person back 100 rupees and I'm selling this bond for a discounted price, maybe 100 rupees, I'm selling this for 90 rupees and the person has a legal claim on this. Fine, bond is given. So when the bond is being sold, the government is getting money in return. So money is getting capital in return over here. Clear? So it's one of the ways. Now we can also issue bonds, banks can also issue bonds, there are instruments like this, but here specifically I'm referring to the government because sizable amount is coming from the government. And why is the government borrowing money? And lots of money. Global bond sales surpassed 10 trillion. That means the governments of different countries are borrowing across the globe, not just from their institutions, domestic, but also from the outside. Why? One reason is the huge fiscal deficit, the lockdown that had taken place and the crippling effect on the economy. The government had to work on debt. Yeah, they had to borrow money for the routine functioning of the governments. Then so these are certain issues that have been unable to, the additional difficulties to sovereigns, means governments, that they have been unable to restart growth, reduce reliance on foreign currency financing, etc. Okay, fine. So this is their fiscal deficit is very high, or maybe we need foreign currency also for that, also that can be done. So the situation in the economy of the world is not good. That is what it indicates. And this also means that government ultimately has to return this money. Here it says interest in bonds, there is no interest. It's actually at, you sell the bond at a discounted price in the first place. So in return, the government eventually will have to, they will receive about the actual value of the bond. They buy it at a discounted price. Okay. So this is it. So this indicates that the situation is not good, and when the government is actually spending money, at that point of time they will have a significant, huge amount of interest burden, because ultimately they have to return this money with plus some interest. They have to pay back the difference. So this will not be good for the overall health of the economy. And it also means that there are many other countries like Pakistan, Sri Lanka, etc., who are highly vulnerable to a economic bankruptcy kind of a situation. Right then, so this concludes the session. So thank you for streaming in to IASPrimers with me, Shubhashish. Bye bye, take care and all the best.